Hello again, and welcome back to Hampton Lake Homestead. If you've ever tried to grow anything from the squash family before, you know that there are a whole multitude of pests out to get them. Today I'm going to talk about two of the most common pests that affect summer squash. Squash are susceptible to many pests, and damage can occur to them very quickly. The most important thing to do to control pests is to check the plants regularly and stop problems early before they become a bigger problem. There are also prophylactic measures that can be done, and I will be discussing some of those measures today. I'm going to start with the most common and problematic pest for squash, which is the aptly named squash bug. Today, as I was checking my yellow squash, I found damage to some of the leaves. Also on the undersides of some of the leaves, I found some egg clusters. The adult bugs will bite into the plant and can actually kill seedlings and damage adult plants so that they produce fewer, if any, vegetables. The adults lay bronze eggs in clusters on the leaves, especially on the undersides near the veins. The eggs then hatch into nymphs that also feed on plants. To control the pests, remove any adults that you see by hand. Any eggs that are seen on the leaves can be removed by scraping them off into soapy water, which kills them. Or another clever way to remove eggs is to wrap duct tape around your hand so that the sticky surface faces outward, and use your hand as a lint brush. By moving that sticky surface over the leaves, the eggs will come off onto the tape and can then be disposed. Organic sprays or powders can also be applied to a few of the leaves and on the stem and on the soil along the vine. Be sure not to spray the flowers or too many of the leaves so that pollinators can still pollinate without being harmed. Row covers can also be applied until blooms develop, but unless you are going to hand pollinate, the row covers need to be removed when blooms appear. Another common and often even more devastating infestation for the squash family is the squash vine borer. These are little caterpillars that burrow inside the vine, often right at the base, close to the soil, and begin feeding from the inside of the vine. Without treatment, this feeding results in complete death of the entire plant, and it often doesn't occur until the plant is fully grown and has already begun fruiting, which is a very difficult thing to have to watch. Squash vine borer moths, which look like wasps, lay eggs at the base of the squash vines in the spring and summer. The larvae then hatch from the eggs, which is the caterpillar that burrows into the vine. Now, even if you do find squash vine borers inside your plants, they can still be saved. It's important to understand that the vine itself can grow new roots all along the vine. So if you find an area where a squash vine borer has infected your vine, if you go beyond that area and cover it with soil, many times new roots will grow. Another thing to do is to try to find the hole where the borer went inside, and then using a small wire, it can be stuck through the hole, and often the caterpillar can be impaled, which will kill it. Or another method is to find the hole where the caterpillar went in and to make an incision near it and to try to extract the caterpillar itself. Either way, with any of these methods, make sure that the entire vine is covered well and well watered so that new roots can grow. Also, check the plant to see if you can find any of the eggs laid by the squash vine borers. These are reddish brown in color, but look very similar to the squash bug eggs. The distribution of them is often different though. They often lay them along the vine itself or on the stems of the leaves, but sometimes you'll find them on the underside of the leaves as well, which can often be confused with those of the squash bug. But do the same thing with them, just as you did the squash bug. If you find the eggs, just scrape them off into some soapy water, which will kill them. Prophylaxis is also important with the squash vine borers. Again, by keeping the vine covered with soil as much as possible, not only does that allow new root growth, it also makes it more difficult for the borers to actually get to the stem itself. Also, insect sprays and powders can be applied to the vine and along the soil on either side. But again, try to be sure to keep the insecticides off the flowers so that it will not affect the pollinators. But as of today, I'm already seeing squash bugs and their eggs on my plants, and I'm concerned that I may have a squash vine borer. So I'm about to check those out now. So let's get started. Just out checking on the squash plants, and I see that we've got some squash bug eggs here. These are these little bronze colored round eggs, and what you want to do is remove these. I've got a little cup of soapy water, so I'm just going to pull these off with my fingers down into this soapy water, which kills them. Here's some more that are right in this crease of the leaves. They usually go right along these veins, so I want to remove those as well. All right, when I was checking the base of this squash plant, I saw this area that looked like it could have a squash vine borer, but I've used this wire probe and I'm not finding any holes, so I think I'm okay here. But what I'm going to do to prevent any squash vine borers is I'm going to spray this with the organic insecticide right along this base, or right along this stem. I'm going to be using triple action, which is an organic insecticide just along this base and maybe up on the leaves some where I'm getting all of these squash vine borers, and maybe along the leaves too where I'm getting some of these squash bugs, to try to serve as a prevention before I get any problems with this plant. I'm just going to spray right along this base, and this will hopefully keep this plant out of trouble. I'm also going to cover it up with some soil so that I will get some secondary rooting along this stem. As long as you put soil along these nodes, more roots will form, so that even if you do get a squash vine borer further back, and then on up here, it will continue to root and the plant will stay alive. So just taking some of this fine compost and just putting it all around this stem, which should lead to some good rooting. So this ought to be a good protectant, both between the spray and the compost that I've added. Now I'm doing the same thing on the zucchini. This one's in better shape. The base of it does not show any signs of any type of damage, so I think it's okay. But I'm still going to give it a spray as a prophylaxis and also put some compost around it as well. So of the three sisters, the squash plants are the ones that are the most susceptible to diseases. So I'll be dedicating more videos to those as the season progresses. But that's all I have for today. Thanks so much for watching.